so we have a quorum. Let's call it to order at 7:03. Let's see. Do we need to do introductions tonight? We have our members of the public who we all know. All right, you're here. You remember? You know everyone. Do you want introductions? Okay, great. Hi, Bucky. So we don't need introductions. Do we have any revisions to the agenda?
No, I was just thinking that because, you know, we have a viewing public who may not know us, you know.
You mean you don't think they're regular viewers?
I just, you know.
Tuning in each week to see?
Just saying.
Okay, you're right. That's probably a very good idea. Yes.
Was it this, as Carolyn knows, not a lot of meetings, but it seems like, I remember us talking about doing name tags. Was that at this meeting? Or another meeting? Because I almost think that might help
I don't
for the
remember
viewing.
that, Emily.
Okay, so it must have been
I
another
don't- it
meeting,
was at
but
a
I
different
also
meeting,
think
but-
that it's still not a bad idea for
I
us
think
to
it's
have
not a
that
bad
in front
idea.
of us
Yeah.
for the viewing public,
yeah.
as you call it.
Yeah, in case they tune in late.
Yeah.
Just little tent cards.
Actually,
You know,
Brattleboro
this is
TV
hard card
puts them
fold
on
in
when you
half.
talk, don't you, Rich?
Actually, they do, which is really
Which
great.
is really cool.
Okay, so maybe we don't need introductions if they do that, and
I don't know if they
Rich
do it
knows
for
who we are.
every person talking, but I.
If you don't talk, they might sit there and wonder who you are.
Yeah, right.
So,
Let's just do it.
we'll just do it.
So I think we should try to do name tags.
Okay, and we'll try for name, I'll make a note about name tags for next week, then we don't have to do it again. But for tonight, we'll briefly introduce ourselves. Anshi, you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, just start on that and we'll go around the table.
Auntie Rupert Windham.
Carolyn Partridge Windham.
John Everett, consultant.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Go ahead, we're
Sure,
doing
you're on
circle.
TV.
Laura Hazard, principal at Jamaica Village School.
Emily Long from Newfane.
Joe Winrick from Townsend.
Patty Dixon, Jamaica, the town of Jamaica.
Ian Doe, Newfane.
Aaron Zargo, Brookline.
Jerry Green, Brookline.
Ken McFadden, Newfane. Bucky Pelzo, Newfane.
Bill Antone, superintendent.
Peter Barris, recorder.
Do you guys want to be on TV? You already are. Are members of the public?
Jerry Dykes.
Nancy Dyke, Wyndham.
Windham.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have any revisions to tonight's agenda?
No, it looks good.
Okay,
Let's move forward.
perfect. You guys have any public comment?
No.
No? All right. We have minutes from both the last meeting and our first meeting that need to be revised perhaps and otherwise approved. Are there any revisions to either one of those documents?
Looks all good to me, except for, I believe, on 829's page 304. I think it's the second. I don't have them here, I wrote it down. It's the second.
You want my glasses, Ken?
No, I got mine in my pocket. Yeah, page 3 or 4. I think it was the second paragraph down. There's something that says Joe Winright did hat, and I think it's supposed to be that. Here it is, right here. Second sentence, second paragraph. Third sentence, sorry.
Oh, added hat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Added hat the articles. Turn that to a that, and I'm all good. And so I move to have them approved.
There is one typo.
With that typo.
There's also one
There's
typo
two typos.
in the September 15th minutes on page 2, second paragraph, second sentence, to make this form of presentation is spelled incorrectly.
Oh, yeah.
That darn spell check.
I'm not even sure presentation isn't. Would pass spell check. Any other type of, Patty?
Well, I saw some typos, but I didn't pay much attention to them. But on page 1, what is the timeline that allows
Which one?
the March 17th vote by the towns? I didn't really say that they adjusted their timeline, the Wardsboro, Dover, Marlboro group. I said that they discussed it, and then they realized that it might not leave them enough time for revotes and things if they adjusted their timeline, so they just were gonna go with the flow as we actually decided to do and see how it went. But I don't think I
Yeah,
said
the
they
September
actually
15th.
adjusted their time. Yeah, on the September
here.
15th. I don't think I said they adjusted their timeline, they discussed it.
So we'll change it to this,
On one of these, I put the wrong header on and called it a Leland the Great board meeting.
Yeah, that's the September 15th minutes.
Yeah.
I knew everybody was calling us the Leland and Gray Study Committee anyway, so it just kind of went, oh, okay, Leland and Gray Middle and High School Study Committee. So you can change, so we'll change that to that, she noted that the committee discussed an adjusted timeline or something?
Yeah.
Adjusting
Yeah.
your timeline. All right,
I think what we're called is the Leland and Gray Towns Act 46 Study Committee or something like that.
Okay.
Is that how we're doing it?
LelandGrayTowns, Act 46.
Yeah, I think that's how you.
Leland and Gray Towns Act 46 Study Committee.
So we should probably have the minutes say the same thing as what we're posting
Okay.
them as.
Will do.
Okay, any other tweaks? All right, we need a motion.
I move to,
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
I move to approve the minutes as as amended, as agended, yeah.
That's a typo.
There's another typo, right?
Sherry, did you second?
Yeah.
I thought I heard you both.
No, I second.
Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion? Beautiful. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of August 29th and September 15th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Beautiful. They're approved. All right, we have actually, on the agenda, we have two principal presentations, but we only have one principal.
He was gonna be just a little bit late, so.
Okay, okay. So, ladies first anyway, right?
Not sure where I should be. John
Wherever you'd like to
suggested
be.
Thank you
Whatever.
so much for the
Front,
rapid
so-
turnaround. That was really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm shocked.
And I
No.
have forwarded this to John so that you can, I'm assuming that John will put together all of our presentations so that you can have access to it as you like. And let's see.
There we go.
Okay, so first, I don't know, I have my back towards you, so I'll stand here. First, thank you all for inviting us and me to do this presentation. I think it will prove pretty valuable, and it's exciting to be able to share what we're doing in our schools, and I can't wait to tell you about Jamaica. So, Laura Hazard, principal at Jamaica, and we are a PBIS school, and we value respect, responsibility, safety, and being ready to learn. So a little bit about Jamaica, the town, and its demographics. The population from the US Census in 2010, we had 1,035 folks in our town. You can see the male-female breakdown there. The median household income is also listed there with the comparison to Vermont, so a little bit less than the Vermont average. And then the cost of living index, higher than the US average, and I imagine that's true for the rest of the state of Vermont as well, just because we are an expensive state to live in. From our Jamaica Town plan in 2012, and I thought this was interesting, although the math doesn't quite up, but it's direct numbers taken from the, from the Jamaica plan. In 2010, there were 1,055 housing units. 460 of those were occupied, either owned or rented, and then 595 were vacant. The interesting piece here is within that vacant number, you can see that 556 of those are seasonal. So we have a high percentage of seasonal homes in Jamaica. We are the, geographically, square miles, we do have the largest number of square miles, which is also an interesting fact. Okay, so JVS itself. Our current enrollment is at 58, and we are a pre-K through 6 school. We do have combined classrooms, pre-KK, first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth, with the exception of our math classes. So those are taught by grade. We have 4 classroom teachers, 1 reading and math teacher, and a special educator that comes to us 2 days a week. We have a pre-K para because of our numbers, a pre-K through 6 para, and 1.5 special education paras. Our current free and reduced lunch rate is 65%, higher than the state average. At the end of the school year, we ended with 75%. We currently have 12% special ed population, and our food service is provided by the Abbey Group, and they provide breakfast, the fresh fruit and vegetable tray to each classroom, given a grant, lunch, and an after-school meal for those students that participate in Laughter, our after-school program. I put up some past enrollment numbers, and this is October 1st data because that's when we report to the state. So you can see, consistent with the state of Vermont, our enrollment is also decreasing from 2012 at 73 to our current 58. Although we're not quite at October 1st, so we have some hope of getting some more before then. Okay, so here's the good stuff. Learning opportunities at Jamaica. So we do follow standard-based curriculum, the Common Core in English Language Arts and Math, as well as the Next Generation Science Standards. For Social Studies, Vermont's grade level expectations for History and Social Sciences. We also use and follow the ISTE standards for technology. And physical education, Vermont's adopted the National Physical Education Standards. And then for our pre-K students, the Vermont Early Learning Standards. At Jamaica, we have art 1 day a week, music 1 day a week, instrumental music a half day a week. We have a school counselor that comes to us 1.5 days a week. Our school nurse is with us a half day a week. And we have a social worker, which is currently grant funded, that meets with individual students in our 5th and 6th grade classroom to help them transition to Leland & Gray, because she's also employed at Leland & Gray. And she's with us 1.5 day a week as well. Other learning opportunities. We do offer a full day pre-K program for our 4-year-olds. We have 4-year-olds only. We are a PBIS school, and we have been trained also in responsive classroom. That was before PBIS became well known. We were trained in responsive classroom, and we still do use those practices. We do have Laughter and consistently have a high rate of participation in our after-school programming. Our kindergarten through 4th grade use a Wilson language program called Foundations, and that's a prevention program to improve reading and math and spelling. Also works on handwriting. K through 6, 1-to-1 computing. So we have Chromebooks for those students. With regard to technology, new this year we're going to be trying school-wide keyboarding without tears. It also addresses the ISTE standards, so students will learn to keyboarding skills, but also learning those technology skills along the way. We do all-school coding. As of last year, and participated in an hour of code, and then use websites for those coding practices. We use a math program called iExcel, which really works on students' math skills, and teachers can assign work, or students can self-select. Reading A to Z pulls up electronic books, and lots of other websites too that are technologically based. Every other year, we rotate between an all-school science fair and an all-school diversity fair. So this year will be a diversity fair, and each student, or they sometimes work in groups. Our pre-KK class will do a project together. We'll present for the diversity fair about a country and learning about a country that they study. And it's a big turnout for our families and a great learning experience for everyone. This year, we are embarking on a lot of teaching and learning about growth mindset and the importance of having a growth mindset, as well as mindfulness. So helping students to self-regulate and be ready to learn, and just really aware of themselves in space, and believing in themselves and knowing that they can learn. They might not be able to do it right now, but they will be able to do it eventually. We have received, and I am applying for again, grants from the Vermont Arts Council. If you've been to our school, and if you haven't, I encourage you to come. You can come anytime for a visit. Just let me know. But in our multi-purpose room, we have an amazing mural up on the wall, and that was done by students a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago now. And the theme is "We Are the World," and so we've learned that song and sing it at all school meetings. But it's a beautiful mural, and that was one of the things that was that we did through that grant. Last year we were awarded the Green School Energy Challenge grant, and so we worked with VEEP, Vermont Energy Education Program, to conserve energy in our school, and many of our families took on an energy challenge as well. And so there was some great learning. Kids worked with data, and we had a science educator from VEEP come in and work with our students in the building. Our 4th grade has for a number of years participated in Starbase, which really targets STEM, and I know that there are a few other schools, Windham and Wardsboro also go on an annual basis to Starbase. It's up in Rutland, and it's a phenomenal hands-on science, technology, engineering, and math program. Our 6th graders, for their classroom, their class trip, get to select a location, not across the country, but in New England generally, a nature's classroom site, and so they do a self-selection of that, and they spend a week exploring nature and participating in hands-on learning activities. I don't have a clicker, so let's see. Library. So each classroom has its own library. We also have a school library, but our classrooms visit our town library, because if you've been to our school, it's just a little bit up the hill. So it's easy access, a quick walk, and our classrooms do visit our local library as well. We do a lot with multi-age groups. We have all school meetings each week. We have all school recess. We have mixed lunch groups, lunch table groups, and activity groups. Last year we did a forest fun and exploration multi-age group where students were outside. They built, in these multi-age groups, they built forts, explored the woods, and then the culminating project was really to learn about a habitat that they wanted to bring back to our campus. So like the monarchs were one, or bees, or bats, things that are disappearing from Vermont, wanted to bring back to our campus. And so one group built bat houses, another planted milkweed, and et cetera, to try to bring those habitats back. This year we have plans to establish reading buddies, and we also want to do some more with our community and tie that to the standards as well. So those are things that are in the works. We've had a few meetings about them already, and excited to begin that multi-age group work again. We are treated annually to a all-school field trip by our school club. They raise thousands of dollars for our school each year. And we get to go to some of these amazing places on a coach bus, which is a treat in and of itself. A bus, a moving vehicle with a bathroom, and TVs, it's a big deal. And so it's really quite amazing what they do for our school, and you can see the amazing places that we've been. We host a variety of performances throughout the year. Tiger we have had for a number of years. They're from Plymouth State University, and they do a fantastic bullying education program as well as a friendship program. They have several theater programs that they do. The kids love them. and then the actors come into the classrooms and work with the students afterwards. So it's really a wonderful experience, and there's songs that go along with it that we learn and sing throughout the year. We've had the Vermont Symphony Orchestra come a few times. Mad Science, Hampstead Players comes at least annually. And two-actor show does a phenomenal job. The kids love them. Some other classroom all-school experiences. We've been to Hildene, Windham Solid Waste. That was an amazing field trip. And the Manchester Music Festival. We'll be going to see Pocahontas in Manchester October 11th, again sponsored by these folks. So a little bit more about JVS. We have participated in some pretty extensive professional development over the last few years, some at the WCSU level, including balanced literacy, mathematics for all, life space crisis intervention, and CPI. And at GVS in particular, we've really focused on the Common Core, the Next Generation Science Standards, the ISTE standards, responsive classroom, of course, as I mentioned before, other models of behavior intervention, assessment. Prior to having an SU standards-based report card that we have now, Jamaica developed its own. So we had piloted that a year prior to the SU came online with its standard-based report card. Working on our own instructional practices by viewing videos of other teachers and participating in differentiated instruction professional development. In our classrooms, teachers provide the interventions. We do have, as I mentioned before, a reading and math teacher. She provides reading interventions as well, but teachers provide their own interventions given data analysis. Our classroom teachers and reading math teacher, they have blogs that they update consistently to keep communication lines open and pictures going home so families can see what's happening in the classrooms. Our staff are first aid and CPI certified. We do an annual student and family survey, and I do an annual leadership survey with my staff and the board as well. Some community connections. We have a very supportive community, an active school club, as I had said before. Some classroom curriculum connections. We visit our town government, the post office, historical society, the Rossonville Schoolhouse, fire and rescue. So sometimes those folks will come to us, sometimes we go to them. And we, as I mentioned before, this year we really want to focus on more of that, more of those connections. Our sixth graders have been helping out at the monthly senior luncheon, which is held at the church, again within walking distance, helping to serve and then of course visit with the elderly population in Jamaica. We do weekly visits to the Jamaica Memorial Library. We also work with the Jamaica Wardsboro Food Pantry. We do annual food drives. Neighborhood Connections out of Londonderry, we have a connection with them. And I can call them and they can help meet the needs of families in Jamaica. Stratton Foundation, we have an amazing connection with the Stratton Foundation. They have been extremely generous with their Moving Mountains grants. And most recently their backpack program grant, and what that is on Fridays. We started it last fall. On Fridays, I send home bags of food with children in need that include items that they can easily access, both perishable, so fresh fruit and vegetables for the weekend, and non-perishable items for breakfast and lunch, as well as milk coupons get stapled on there for the local market they can exchange. So that's been a successful program and we'll be continuing that again this year. The foundation also does Pass It On, a winter clothing distribution at Jamaica Village School, and that's open to not only children but to all families in and around Jamaica. I think that's October 20th, I believe, our parent conference is. Other community connections. We receive donations from area churches. Keep Sport provides our students with reduced rental rates for our GIST program. We have several program leaders from our community that participate in our Laughter After School program. And we work with Rescue Inc., Jamaica's Emergency Director, State Police, Windham County Sheriff, and VisBit to fine-tune our crisis response plan. They've been really instrumental in that. That's it. So questions from you? Yes.
I don't have a question, that was a wonderful presentation.
Yeah.
It's amazing, all the things you managed to do.
Thanks, Patty.
It's very impressive.
It's not me. It's not just
Well,
me.
you all.
It takes a lot of us.
Jamaica
Yeah.
School does, and
Yes.
staff and faculty.
I would agree, it's extremely impressive what you are doing, what you have accomplished. And it's a great school.
Yeah.
My granddaughter went there.
So, I don't really have a question, but it's more of a comment on the 65% rate of students in need in your community, and your programs seem to really reflect the need, which I'm assuming is intentional.
Right.
You are really noticing.
Right.
Do you know what you are compared to other? I think we're at like 49% here.
Yeah,
I think, at
we're
LelandGray.
we're very
Yeah,
high. I
a
mean,
lot.
endings at 75% is, it's like
Extremely high to me.
35%
Yeah.
over the state average.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I mean, I understand regionally and all that, but even for us here, this
Mhm.
seems like way over what we
Right.
are here in Windham Central.
Yes, by far.
That's very,
Jamaica's by far the highest.
very concerning. And I applaud you for the work you're doing to try to mitigate the issues that come along with that.
I think it's great that you have so many parents that are willing to participate and do, say we're free and reduced lunch and accept the help. Because I think sometimes that's an issue with
Right, and we
people
do,
signing on.
so the forms go home to everyone in the SU, but we follow up with that too. So making, personal, whether it's personal connections if people come in the door or reaching out via the phone. But, there are a lot of really proud people, and tapping into the people that might not otherwise complete a form and getting them the help they need is really important.
Laura, could you tell us how the school club works?
Sure. So it's a group of parents, although I know there is a retired teacher and community member also active on our school club as well. And they raise funds throughout the year. So they'll do, at LelandGray, they do the penny sale, which is generally around April. You've been? It's fun. Have you won anything, hopefully? So raise thousands of dollars at things like that. This weekend they'll be at the dam release at the Jamaica State Park. They have a food cart, and so they'll be selling hamburgers and hot dogs and soups and chilies out of that to all the kayakers and canoers that are headed down the river. And just multiple fundraising efforts throughout the year. And all of their money comes back to the kids. Generally in the form of, they do a number of things, but the all-school field trip is a big one. They do separately from the school at the end of the school year, they take everyone to Bromley, to the Thrill Zone. So that's separate from the school calendar. But they also do things, provide scholarships, sometimes for families and students in need. Yes.
Laura, I trust that the support services that you have for students and families have been ongoing for a number of years.
They have been, and we continue to fine tune those, given the needs of kids and families.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question is, are you able to monitor academic performance as these services are incorporated into the school program and to assess their benefit?
Yes, I haven't teased it out like I introduced, let's just say if I introduced, when we introduce mindfulness and the growth mindset, we'll certainly have last year's data to compare to this year's data, right? To see if there's a difference there. Or with the addition of, the social worker, but that's just for a small number of students, so we could pull out their data, those students, those particular students. But as far as assessment data, Jamaica generally performs above the state average.
And how is that determined?
How is it determined? On the SBAC. And then we also use MAP data for our K2, and that's normed nationally, so that's not just Vermont data, but that's national norms.
But that doesn't break out and attribute specifically to the support services.
I have not disaggregated it in the way that I think you're talking about, as far as timing-wise go. I could perhaps do that work, but I haven't.
You don't have a 26-hour day either.
Sometimes I do. I feel like I do sometimes, if that's possible.
Could I just follow up on
Sure.
Vicky's question? I would say that one of the things that I have done over the last year and a half is kind of look at the trends, and Jamaica has increased dramatically in the number of the percentage of free and reduced lunch, yet at the same time the results of their students have maintained or increased. So to answer kind of what I think you were getting to is that the supports are there to a more to provide a continue of growth placement. You increase the supports and then the growth has been there even with a more with an increase of free and reduced lunch population. So I have noticed that. It's one of the things that we share out among principals is not only results of students, but also where we are with free and reduced lunch and percentages of special education students and student-teacher ratio, so we can get the context of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm very much interested in outcomes.
As are we.
I'm curious about the teacher retention that you have there. I imagine it's probably hard to have teachers stick around when there's 2 days of PE or a day of math, and how you fill those and what's that retention look like?
It's been really good. We just had a teacher retire that had been there for over 30 years. We currently have a teacher that's been there for 20-something years. Our pre-KK teacher, this is her 3rd year. And our 5th and 6th grade teacher, this is her 2nd year, replacing a teacher that had been with us for over 12, 15, something like that years. But he's still within our supervisory.
But it's important to note that some of the part-time teachers are shared across the SU.
Right.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Don't you share some of those?
So, right.
Those are
So
WCSU
that
employees, so they're doing
yes.
0.2 elsewhere.
Right, the specials teachers are shared.
Which helps to keep.
Right.
Right. That could be a hard position to fill if it was 2 days.
Definitely.
That's it.
Definitely.
Right.
Other questions or thoughts?
I was wondering if you could touch on the laughter program for people who don't know what it is and how
Sure.
how much it benefits our students.
Sure. So Laughter is our after-school program, and it runs in generally 5 to 7 week programs, and the programs go from 3 until 5, and there is an after-school bus that takes students to stops along Route 30. And at Jamaica, I think it might look different than at other schools. So how we have structured it, again, responding to needs in our school, we have built in a homework time. So after our school day ends at 3, students will get their meal. And then go outside and play for a little bit. They'll come back in for what we call homework club. And for some students, that's in a very small setting with a tutor. And for other students, it's in a, when I say larger, there's maybe five or 7 students in a group, working with either one of the counselors or a program leader to get assistance on their homework. And then at 4, the program begins, so it's self-selected, so students choose their program from a menu. There's choices that they can pick. And those programs are facilitated by, we have a high rate of teachers in our school that lead those programs, but we also have community members that lead the programs, and some of the counselors from Leland and Gray, under the supervision of our program director, they've led programs as well. So what are those programs? They vary. For some, we often have like an academic choice, so it might be math games, it might be STEM related, it could be exploring books or the world of technology, the world of print. Some are arts and crafts, some are outside, biking, hiking, learning different skills like playing an instrument. So we've had ukuleles, we've had recorders, we've had garbage bands, garage bands, not garbage, garage band. Let's see. And it's really what we try to ask the kids is, what do you want to do after school? So as teachers, we look at our data and we say, okay, we need a math component, and so we try to steer some kids in that direction. And our director will respond by creating that learning opportunity for kids. But we also want to have kids say what they're interested in and what they want to learn about too, and to provide those opportunities for them. Summer opportunities?
In the extension of after school, so extended learning, you guys host.
We have hosted the Explorers Camp, so many of our students participate in that, of course. In addition to that, we provide tutoring at Explorers Camp, so outside of the Explorers Camp realm, we provide tutoring to Jamaica kids at that camp.
Laura, how many kids participate in the laughter program? Is it pretty much the entire school population?
It's high. I don't have that data with me, but we're
Between
generally
70 and 80%.
Yeah, we're at one of the highest schools. So our halls are generally full. Although soccer season now, so if you have only 58 kids and they have so many options, which is great for kids and families, but I imagine after the trend is after soccer is over, most schools see an increase in their laughter programs.
Laura, how is the laughter program funded?
That's a great question. So it's funded by a 21st century grant, and also by some of the local budget. So combination.
Great, thanks.
And I will say, in addition to that, a small portion of it is funded by families' pay, based on a sliding scale.
Okay.
And if they can't pay, then we work that out too, so the kids can be there.
Thanks.
The participation rate's really high. I think that's wonderful that it's so high. I think that's based on need, and our families taking advantage of that because they're at work and all of that.
Well, I think partly, but I think that the kids like to come, right? So they're interested, they want to be there, and we recruit. So if kids aren't on the list that typically come, or that we say, hey, this might be interesting, so we'll recruit and contact those individual students or individual families for them to participate. So it's a lot of reaching out as well. It's not just whoever turns in a form. That's it. It's more of the personal connections too.
Joe, would it be possible to get hard copies of Laura's slides?
Yes.
I can send them around.
Yeah, John has the PowerPoint, so we can get it.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you again for the opportunity. And if you want to come visit, really, I'd love to have you.
It was really
Thanks,
good.
Laura.
All right. So we have one more presentation. That's you.
All right.
That's you. Just for the viewing audience and the board Introduce yourself first.
Gladly. My name is Mickey Parker-Jennings, and I am the teaching principal at Windham Elementary School. I don't know that I have enough copies for everyone that I'm passing out. A couple of the principals took them today from me. They were excited. Running short, but I will hopefully have enough for you to share some, if you're willing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here, I got a couple extras still to go around. Yeah. That one's kind of sneaky. That's great. Okay. All right.
I can take one of these and scan it in and send it to everybody too if you want.
All right. Turn to the first page. Got demographics. I don't really feel the need to go over all the demographics with you. You can check it out for yourself. I feel like the first 2 pages are pretty self-explanatory, and there's not much in there that's really unique to our school other than how small we are. For those of you that are unaware, we only currently have 14 students, which we'll get into a little bit later in the presentation. I just don't feel the need to go through all the numbers of who lives there and how much they make and what the houses cost. It just seems unnecessary. It doesn't really do much to show the uniqueness of our school and our setting, which is extremely unique, and I hope to get into more of that. Flip to the third page, you'll see the races in Windham, which again, pretty similar to most other places around. It's pretty white. Again, doesn't give you much information about the uniqueness of the school. If you flip on to the instruction page, it gets a little bit more detailed. Again, similar to I'm sure you're going to hear from all the other schools. We work through the Common Core state standards, the Next Generation Science standards, Vermont Early Learning standards, Vermont's framework of standards and learning opportunities. As is the case, I think, for all the other elementary schools, the textbooks and the materials are not dictated by the principal or the board. They're determined by the teachers. The daily schedules are decided by the classroom teachers as well. The teachers use data to design child-centered interventions as needed, depending upon where those needs lie. You'll see some of the things are in bold. Those are things that I feel like may be a little bit more unique to our school, or maybe make us stand out slightly from some of the other schools in the area. Groupings are not limited to classroom or grade. They are grouped with other students performing at the same level based on assessment data, regardless of the age or grade. So if there is a second grade student who's a really strong reader and has performed well on a reading assessment, and they're prepared to read at a 5th or 6th grade level, they very well may be in a group with 5th and 6th graders, all reading together the same material, focused on things that are relevant for people who can read at that level. Conversely, if there's a child in an upper grade who needs a little more remediation, they may work with a younger grade. We've gone to a whole school language arts time at this point so that we're all doing language arts at the same time in both classrooms, and it allows the students to freely flow back and forth as needed. If, as the year goes on, they prove that they're ready to move on or move up, they will just move on into the next group and move up wherever they need to be. And that's, again, one of the real benefits of being as small as we are, is that there's that sort of fluid movement from group to group and class to class, where the kids are not in a fixed group, and it really doesn't make a difference what grade you're in or what age you're at. It's what you can perform and what you are capable of doing. Title I in special ed is delivered by a certified pre-K through 6 teacher, which is also not the case in all the schools. We're very lucky that we have someone who is a certified elementary school teacher to deliver all those services, and that really makes for a much stronger program with regard to the students who need those types of services. Instructional design is supported through professional development courses, workshops, independent studies, district initiatives such as balanced literacy, Fontes and Pinnell for language arts. There was a while ago with Mahesh Sharma, we did a lot of work, things of that nature that all the schools are sharing. We certainly are invested in all of that. Teachers are trained to differentiate instruction and provide in-class targeted interventions as needed. Clearly, when you have 3 or 4 grades in a class, you have to differentiate instruction. It's sort of part of the deal. It's not really an option otherwise. So if it's something you're not comfortable with, working in this environment would be a real challenge for sure. It's a necessity. Again, next page, you'll see the 14 full-time students, K through 6, plus 5 registered pre-K students in state-sponsored schools. We do have the 2 multi-age classrooms that are broken down this year, K to 3 and 4 through 6. But again, the arrangements are fluid from year to year based on the numbers and needs. Last year, I did a 3 through 6, and we had a K through 2 just because of how the numbers played out. We modified that this year to be a K3 and a 4-6, which allows me to have the same exact students that I had last year. There is no 6 weeks of school learning about routines. There are no wasted times in the beginning of the year teaching the kids, this is how you do things, this is where you go, this is the way things work here, because they know exactly what they expect, because they did it all last year. We are able to go straight from day one and start with instruction, and for me, that's a really huge benefit to having such a small class size. 2 classroom teachers, one is the full-time principal, one is the, there's one part-time Title I instructional support teacher, as I mentioned, who is also a certified elementary school teacher. We have one part-time paraprofessional who also functions as the administrative assistant as well. Specials classes, we have PE once a week with health class every week, but I will tell you, although we only have PE once a week and many of the other schools have it twice a week, we do spend a significant amount of time outside. As you'll hear at some other point, we do an all-school recess, so all the kids are outside together, interacting at different grade levels, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as it comes up later. The arts in general are of huge importance at the school. Art is done through community volunteers and participation on a weekly basis. This began last year and is still evolving to some degree. One parent volunteer is in charge of recruiting participants and scheduling activities with the principal's consult. Last year we spent several weeks at a local ceramic studio in town working with clay and different firing techniques. That was a decision we made together as a board and a school that we just thought we could meet these artistic needs in a really more exciting way, in a really better way to connect with the community. We have a lot of artistic people in the area, and they were willing and excited to come into the school and do a lot of things under the supervision of both Sally and myself. And then we had the opportunity to go down to the ceramic studio, which has been a remarkably great experience for the kids because they also get out of the school a little bit, they travel, they go someplace else, they're interacting with some different adults, just a bigger experience than we could offer in school with the traditional art program that we had previously been doing. Music is a huge part of our school throughout the week. Music class and chorus are once a week with the district itinerant. Ukulele lessons are taught throughout the year by Sally. She's a remarkable musician. For those of you that don't know, Sally Newton, she's incredible. She's great with a guitar. She's an amazing singer, and thankfully prevents me from having to ever sing. They often play down at the local farmers market and at various events. I had somebody come up to me, and I can't place where or what it was, but they were talking about seeing the kids down at some event playing on the ukuleles and how happy they were and what a positive, joyful experience it was. And it's just something that is really ingrained in our school with the music culture. Playing farmers markets. Oh, we go to Sing at Valley Cares a couple times a year. The people there are so cute and so adorable when they see all these kids come in and the smiles on their faces and they get up and they dance. It's really an amazing experience that we get to do, usually around Christmas time and then again once later on in the year. We also have weekly sing-along at all-school meeting, which Sally leads. She breaks out the guitar at the end of the meeting every morning and we sing some songs. We also do some, what's it called? Line dancing, what's all that, like four-corner stuff? Contra dancing, square dancing. Sorry, I'm not from Vermont, it's all new to me. I've gotten really into it and I love it and it's so fun to watch the kids do it, but Sally is also a caller, so she does a lot of that and the kids are marching all around. It's very cute. We do partner with Meadows Bee Farm. You'll see this in bold because this is one of the coolest things that we do. Mr. Antone has gotten a little bit of briefing on this and is hoping to maybe expand this program to other parts of the SU, which is really exciting. Kids go down potentially for an hour and a half a week, planting, harvesting, doing some beekeeping. There's great pictures of the kids in their bee suits all dressed up, feeding the chickens, gathering eggs, milking the cows, feeding hay, grain, corn. We do have our own school garden that we harvest and use to cook a variety of things for dinners and lunches. The Gathering of the Eggs was, I believe, the beginning of a story by Luca about the 5-fingered creature stealing the eggs, which evolved into a huge play that they produced last year, creating their own puppets with a couple of women who used to work with bread and puppet, and the puppets they made are insanely beautiful, and a lot of it came from that farm program. And it was a whole thing about the impact of spraying pesticides and how it affects the bees and the pollinators, and it was a huge learning experience, and again, was all about the arts for the kids, and they loved it. Of the last 6 valedictorians at Leland and Gray, 2 of them have come from Windham, okay? So there's no shortage of super smart, brilliant kids. Motivated students can go as far and as fast as they want, and as fast as they are capable of going. And again, that's one of the benefits of such a small class size with multiple grades. If you have a child in 5th or 6th grade who's really excelling and wants to push themselves and go far and go fast, they have that opportunity. They learn how to work a little bit more independently with more of a check-in situation with me. They can move straight into algebra as a 7th grader and then just go as far as they want to go. So that was really exciting to have back-to-back, I think it was back-to-back valedictorians coming out of Windham a few years back. The Weston Playhouse experience, we're the only school in this supervisory union that participates. And what that experience is all about is one of 2 women will come from the Weston Playhouse, both of which have been on Broadway actresses, and one of which I think just was hired to move out to Michigan State to run their drama and theater program. And they come to the school for 5 weeks, twice a week, to help the kids write and create their own play, which is related to some topic that they choose from the Weston experience, and teach the kids different theater techniques, and they have warm-ups, and then they write the play, they create the props, they rehearse and practice, and then go perform on stage at the Weston Playhouse, along with 4 other schools, Chester, Cavendish, and I can't remember what the other one is. But it's a really amazing, remarkable experience because, again, if you have kids doing this program for 3 and 4 years, they come in as 3rd and 4th graders, and they're shy, and they don't want to have a part, and they don't want to say anything, and they're up on stage all petrified. After 2 years go by, they're up there, they're yelling, they're pointing, they're like drawing attention to themselves, completely coming out of their shells. Again, a truly wonderful experience. And if those women are being honest with me, they absolutely love coming to Windham, and they are adamant that when they rewrite the grant every year, they call us first. We do Starbase for the upper grade students, along with some students from Jamaica in the past have gone along, so that's not really a unique experience. You may hear more about that from some other people. Did you talk about that at all? Okay, no need to go into that. Key Waden, which is a combination of 5th and 6th grades. Again, we go with some of the other schools in the supervisory union and help builds the capacity for these kids to work together, to know each other, to get familiar with one another before they hopefully come to Leland and Gray and all function as a class together. We have a fairly unique 6th grade class trip. Recently, it's been an all-day trip to New York City. We start by car early in the morning, drive down to the New Haven train station, get on the train, get into New York, take the subway, walk around the city, go to the Empire State Building, possibly the Freedom Tower, various other sites, food in Chinatown, eventually get back on the train to go to Connecticut for some real pizza. You'll see that in quotes. Any of you that have ever been to New Haven, you know what I'm talking about. One student who was a lone 6th grader decided she wanted to go to Boston because she'd never been on an airplane. So we bought plane tickets, and we flew from Rutland Airport to Boston, to Logan, and she got to be on a plane for the first time. She also had never been on an escalator before. So we rode the escalator at the airport, at which point she said, "No more with the escalator, we're taking the stairs." She was far more afraid to ride the escalator than she was to ride the plane. For those of you that remember, on the plane ride back, it was the day the tornado touched down in Springfield, Massachusetts. And our flight was delayed for about 45 minutes, and we eventually got on the plane, which I was not too psyched about, hearing about the weather, and the plane was bouncing all over the place. It was very crazy. She was hysterical, laughing, screaming, having such a great time, and said she'll never go on a plane again. But she got to do it. Other students, we've gone to Fenway Park to see a Yankee Red Sox game, which again was a really good experience for the one kid who was sort of outspoken and kind of domineering, Yankees fan of course. Went there with all his Yankee gear, had to take a little bit of razzing from the fans, and that was a really good growing, learning experience for him to realize, you know what, it's a little bit different when you get out into the larger cities. We are a PBIS school. You'll hear a lot about that, I'm sure, from some of the other schools. 5 years of safe, responsible, respectful, and ready to learn. Laura and I just realized we have that same motto at both our schools. Modeling students treat each other really well. It's now part of the culture of the school. Work collaboratively. Students congratulating their peers on positive, respectful, and safe behaviors. We use a bead system to reinforce those behaviors, and they earn some sort of a school-wide celebration at some point when they reach a milestone with the beads. This happens 2 times a year. It could be a day of sledding, swimming, ice skating, some other activity that we all agree upon at an all-school meeting. One of the beautiful things about this program is that the students have really taken ownership of it now. And it no longer needs to be the teachers pulling out the beads and rewarding the kids. Kids are running up to me, so-and-so did this, can I give them a couple of beads? So-and-so did this, please, they need a few beads for whatever. And they've completely taken ownership of it, and they seem to really enjoy the fact of recognizing one another. And I'll tell you that is arguably the best part about the school is there really are not discipline issues. We don't have to deal with that because the kids know each other so well, they get along, they're more like siblings. So even if they do have an explosion, they're over it within minutes and they're laughing and playing again, somewhat similar to a brother and sister might have that situation. We do have weekly guidance with the district itinerant who also works here at Leland and Gray. She's amazing. Includes whole group class time as well as lunch groups and then individual meeting times with students. So if she shows up on a given day and a student needs some direct attention, they'll approach her and say, oh, I got something going on, I really need to talk to you, and then they can get some alone time. If that doesn't happen on a major scale, she'll come in, run a group where everyone sits on the floor in a circle, and there's a little medallion that they pass around to talk, to make sure everyone's listening and focused. It's a really nice, quiet, relaxing time for them to work on some of their emotional stress, potentially. Again, the whole school recess with full student interaction. You've got kindergartners playing with 3rd graders, playing with 6th graders. It's not like you might see at a traditional elementary school where all the 5th and 6th graders are dominating the soccer field and the little kids aren't allowed to get out there and play because they're too small. We can't play soccer unless everybody plays. So we do. We've got the little kids out there with the big kids, and the big kids know enough, you know what, to back off a little when a little kid's running into the ball. You don't go up and you kick it and smash this kid so they're falling down and crying, and they're aware of that. They learn the reality of life that you're not spending all your time with kids the same age. It's just unrealistic. And so they really get a good exposure with how to deal with younger and older and make that interaction work. There's a number of kids who currently are playing in the woods, and they create their own little stores, and they collect acorns and rocks and little things that they find, and they trade them and sell them. And it's, again, a really positive social interaction experience for them out at recess. After school programs, we do have a soccer team. We just got a grant from Donors Choose to get a couple of new soccer nets and soccer balls and shin guards and socks for all the kids. I hope to expand upon that and get some cleats and some other things, ideally. Sally does a walking and running club. She's a big-time outdoor enthusiast and wants the kids to be outside as much as possible and runs that in the spring on Wednesdays usually. Zentangles have been done in the past, which was a big hit. Parent group meetings every other week. We are not part of the Laughter program currently. There was concern when it first was presented to us about the eventual match from the local school budget and how that might impact our budget, which is so small. And if it was a really big investment for us, it was going to be hard to potentially sustain over a long term. So we were a little hesitant about starting it with the potential of having to stop it. So as of right now, we are not a part of it. I have spoken with Thera over the past couple years about potentially making that an option. We do have 1 day a week for hot lunch, which focuses on nutrition and a balanced meal. Again, much of this time is based on the concepts taken away from Camp Keewaydin about maximizing recycling, minimizing waste, and your carbon footprint, taking a no thank you portion, trying some different foods, recognizing that you don't just fill your plate because you're starving at the moment. You take a little bit, you finish it, you come back, you take a little more, you finish it, you come back, you take a little more. Okay? And we're really working with kids on that because we have seen them over the years, even with their lunches they're bringing in, they'll take a few bites and they're happy to just chuck it. And that's not something, obviously, that we want them to do. Composting is also a big thing. We do have a compost bucket. The kids, when they finish their food, have to come up, scrape things into the compost, go up to the sink, help wash their place, go back to the table, spray it, wipe it down. We're just trying to teach a little bit of responsibility when it comes to food because not many of them have that experience in their house at all. Geographically, as I'm sure you've heard, our school is necessary in terms of where we are up on the mountain. The thought of putting these 5- and 6-year-old kids potentially on a bus to travel 45 minutes, an hour and a half in the winter when there's snow down that treacherous hill is a very unpleasant thought for many of the residents in town. Over the last 2 years of the SBAC, if you take our average scores from the first year that they gave the test to this past spring and you average them together, our scores are right around the state averages. I'm not able, unfortunately, to share the direct scores because we're so small, and I'm not allowed to do that if we have a population of less than 10. But I can tell you, if you take last spring's data and put it against the state norms, we are double digits above those norms in both math and language arts. And while I'm on that topic, it was brought up today at our leadership meeting, is 100% really an attainable goal? Is it realistic to consider 100% every student in a school is going to make goal? And the answer at our school is yes. When we were taking the NECAP test, we were one student in one subject away from having 100% mastery on that NECAP test for the entire school. So yes, it is possible, and as we familiarize ourselves with this test, I have no doubt that will be the same case. We do have space to grow right now, roughly to twice our size, okay? So we do have room to bring in some more students if that made sense to do for whatever reason. There's always a town presence at the school board meetings, okay? Typically, Jerry and Nancy are there. Even when they're not there, we do have 2 or 3 other people that are showing up for the meetings. It's typically never just the board and myself. It's really a community thing for some people. They find it a worthwhile endeavor, and so it's not typically just the 4 of us sitting around talking. 7 14/100% qualify for free and reduced lunch, which was surprising to me. It's only 1 student. I thought there would be more, but not the case. Same thing, 1 student special ed. We have a less than 5-to-1 student to teacher ratio, which is pretty much unheard of, I would think, at any other school in the state, maybe in the country for that matter, which I'm sure for some of you may not be a good thing, but from an educator's point of view, it is remarkable, it's wonderful, and it again allows every student to get specifically what they need for themselves to be successful. That's pretty much the gist. Again, it's really hard for me to convey how unique and special this place is. The people that spend time there, whether it's the teachers, the board members, the new superintendent, typically all come away with the same impression of, wow, this is a really special, unique place. And it is, and I definitely view it as an endangered species at this point. And when the whole world and country is trying to protect every endangered species possible, I don't see why they're not trying to protect some place like this that really is a hidden gem and allows these kids to flourish where they probably would not in a larger environment. They're very needy, a lot of them, and it just wouldn't work. So it's a very important personal thing for me. It certainly is for the town members and the board members. And if you truly want to get a feel for the school, you need to come up and spend some time there. We're happy to have you. We'll put you to work if you want something to do. You can just sit in back and watch. You can just come play out at recess. You can wander the stores at recess and buy some stuff. Come check it out if you're really curious, because that's ultimately the only way you'll get a real, true perspective of how amazing it is. So, questions, thoughts, comments, issues, discussion? Come on, somebody's got to have something.
How many other elementary schools of this size are there in Vermont?
It's a great question. Bill would know better than I would, to be honest with you.
I believe there's Elmore, that is about 19. And Reading is in the 20s. I could conservatively guess that there are 5 to 6 that are less than 30.
And again, if you want to talk about numbers, when we were having that success on the NECAP, I know it's not huge, but we were up, 25 students. So, I mean, it's still realistic to do 20, 30, 40 students, I would say, and still have the same sort of academic success that we've had and still offer some of the unique experiences that we do. It doesn't need to be 14 students.
Is the 14 pre-K 6?
No.
Or K 6?
K6.
K6, thank you.
Yes. Yep.
You have pre-K.
not at the school at the moment, but we do have 5 kids who
You have
go
5
to
students.
pre-K, and
Okay.
yeah.
And
we
that's
get-
off.
We get the, what, .46 for those kids when it comes to the ADM?
We all get .46.
Correct.
Where did they go to pre-K?
The little school in Weston is one of them.
The one in the Montessori
So the
school.
Montessori school is
in
another one.
Londonderry.
I think those are the 2 currently that we have students at right now. My understanding is, however, kids are able to go wherever they want when it comes to pre-K. If a parent from Windham worked in Brattleboro, they could certainly choose a school down there if that made more sense for them. They're not required to stay in the area.
How does it work for your school with the students who want to play sports outside, like after school?
It's a great
I
question.
imagine it's hard to put together like
It's
a
definitely-
K1 or a
yeah.
1-2 soccer team.
It is very challenging right now. We've kind of got them all on a soccer team, and they're all interested, and we'll try to play teams that sort of fit in the middle of our wide range. We have had enough students to do a basketball team in the past. 5 or 6 was just enough, but we were able to do it. Otherwise, a lot of kids often will go down to Townsend and play down there. They're welcome to, I think, go to Grafton. I coach in Grafton, so certainly happy to have some kids there. I don't know if kids have ever come to Jamaica,
I think so,
but
yeah.
I think so as well.
We work with Woodsboro.
Yeah, so we certainly try to encourage them, if they want to do that, to go elsewhere.
I would just add that one of the benefits to having the situation we do is that the kids play all the time. And so when they get to the high school, like the McDonald boys, they become stars.
Yeah, we did a lot of soccer when those boys were around. We had a really strong 6th grade group of boys, and we played a ton of soccer, and it certainly paid off for those 2 guys. All right.
Anybody else? Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you both. That's really, really helpful to have you come. Not having kids in either one of those schools, I learned an incredible amount about both schools. So, John, have you've managed to meet with enough of the principals that you're comfortable with talking about the impact of unification?
Not
at
quite
this point?
yet.
No?
Not quite yet. I'd rather delay that just a little bit so I
Okay.
can finish putting that information. I just finished this afternoon.
Okay, it's fine. I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
The next item, the alternatives, that you were gonna talk about some of the alternatives if we don't actually go for a unified district?
Sure.
Or if
So-
that doesn't work out?
Yep. So the first alternative, you could write articles that if any 2 of the 3 or 4 of you voted yes, then you could be a union and there'd be a possibility of the side-by-side if the LelandGrayTowns form a unified system. If they don't all come together and it's a modified union, then, no, you are the Leland, I'm sorry. So
It's okay. You totally get it. It's hard to keep track of all.
It's Wednesday, John.
Yes,
I think that's tomorrow's report.
it is,
You
it
can
is.
start.
It is. So you could form a modified union school district. So you could even have everybody advisable and nobody necessary. And as long as 4 came together and said yes, you would be then eligible for the incentives. So that's one thing.
The 4 that said yes would be
The
eligible.
4 that said yes would be eligible. Now, there's still a question about whether the modified union school district, because that's what it would be, because you still have some that are part of the union high school, but not part of this, they call it a red, or unified system. It's unclear whether that would work for the incentives. I just said it would, but it's unclear whether that will work. The agency has not had to make that decision yet, and no one's forced them into that, the state board, to know whether they even have the authority to make that decision, or whether it would have to go to the legislature.
Could you clarify what you just said?
Yes. Yeah. So,
State the grade levels too, it's important, that part. because it is still a modified or a full union school district. It
Right.
would be pre-K.
If it's a full union, if all the towns said yes,
Okay.
pre-K-12,
Yep.
if everybody said yes,
That's a unified.
no matter what the rest of the folks did in Windham Central, you would be eligible for the incentives
As a unified union school.
as a
district.
unified union school district. If it wasn't everyone, but there were 4, you could still do it. You'd be a modified union school district. And you would force the question over whether the modified union school district would be eligible for the incentives or not. Right now, there's no answer to the question, whether a modified union would be eligible. And the state has not had to answer that yet. So it may have to go to the legislature.
So I want to clarify,
Please.
because of what Carolyn's saying, true too, this is not clear because we actually went forward and got approval for a modified unified union school district under Act 156.
Right.
And we were going to get incentives. What has changed? That's number one. And number two, I thought the question was only out there around whether we would be treated as, would be.
The side by side.
Right, treated
Yeah,
as.
you're right.
Or could we be a side? I think we'd still
You're
get
right.
the incentive
Yes.
as a modified unified union school district, but the question is still unanswered about whether we would be eligible to be one side, the pre-K-12 side, even though we would still be a pre-K-12 district.
Yes.
Would we be able to be would qualify for
Yeah,
a side?
and, you know, I got
It's
caught,
fine.
I got caught with my feet in both studies. So let's do it one more time.
Yeah.
If you form a modified union school district or a unified union school district, that's with either 4 or 5 joining. The 4 is needed because that's the number of districts required, because you don't have the numbers. That, you by yourself would qualify for the incentives, just like Emily said.
Whether or not Marlboro and Wardsboro and
That's right, they would be
Dover
off
said
the picture.
joined us. Okay,
No, they wouldn't join you in any case.
okay.
But, so, the question is, as Emily said, is that if you, and if you form a union with all of you participating, and the others did, they would be eligible for incentives as well. Wardsboro, Dover, and Marlboro would be eligible for incentives, if you were a full unified. The question that hasn't been posed yet is if you're a modified union school district, and one of you isn't in the union, whether they could, the side-by-side would work. So Emily had it exactly right. I didn't, but Emily did. And they haven't, that question hasn't been forced to, the state hasn't been forced to answer that question yet.
So it's not that anybody is able to say you wouldn't be a side, it's just that they have never addressed the question yet.
Exactly.
I'm sure that will come up, and I'm sure that will be decided, and I will be fighting very hard for a pre-K-12 system, whether it's modified or full,
Yeah.
to be one of the sides.
The trouble is that will happen probably after what you need to do gets done.
Totally understand.
So, say if one of the towns that's part of the Leland and Gray union votes no, that's still, if we have
Then you'd
4,
be modified.
okay, so we could
As long as you
still
write
move
the articles that
forward.
way.
As long as there's 4.
Okay. And they would have to come along though as an advisable, right, because they are
As long
part
as you
of the
make that
union?
one advisable, or all of them advisable.
Okay, okay, I
Now,
got it.
when you said come along, that sounded like you were talking about after the vote.
Well, they'd have to be an advisable or something, what do they do?
But advisable means that if they vote no,
It's
we
okay.
still go
We can
forward
still
with
move
the
Right.
union, but they're
Before.
not in it.
They're
If 4
not
say yes.
in it, but they still are married to Leland and Gray.
That's right, and they still
union,
participate
but
with
they-
that new board
But they don't get
on
the
matters related
incentives.
to the high school.
I have a question. Could you explain a little bit what would happen if all districts were advisable? Who would then be making any kind of decision?
As long as there were 4 that said yes.
Even if they're still advisable, or will they then no longer be advisable once
Okay.
the unified,
Sure.
or the modified
Sure.
unified district is
The
formed?
necessary and advisable is simply a way to structure the articles.
Okay.
So if you had two towns that you said, look, if these two towns don't get in it, we don't want to do it at all. So you make them necessary. But if you say any 4 towns, we'd be happy with any 4 towns, you can make everybody advisable.
But this will all be preliminary to the actual creation of the unified district.
Exactly, it's the
Okay.
vote that happens, and then whoever says yes becomes
Okay,
the union.
thanks.
Whether they were advisable or necessary.
Right.
That doesn't matter at the end of the day,
Right.
after the vote.
Just have one more.
Go ahead.
Please,
And-
please.
And then, say one town votes no, who's part of the Leland and Gray union, then do they have representation on the board, and are they part of the budget, that whole unified budget thing?
The budget gets separated, high school and elementary.
Yeah.
And so that's how they're part of it, and they
Ah.
participate in matters related to the high school.
Oh, okay, so they keep their own elementary budget.
And
but
board.
And board, but they are part of the Leland, oh, okay, okay, that makes sense.
So this is also something that has already taken
Yeah.
place in Vermont. We've had some experience with this
Yes.
through the Chittenden
It's just a niece, I
Chittenden
believe.
East.
Yep, that makes sense.
Huntington, I believe,
Huntington
didn't
is the
go.
one who did.
Go ahead, Bucky.
I'm presuming that when you're talking incentive, you're talking the tax incentive.
Tax incentive and maintaining small school grants, the phantom students, the protection for drops in enrollments. Those are the two big protections. Now, you never know what's going to happen with all those exactly, the small school grant and the protection for declining enrollment.
For those that served with me on the Red Committee, you've heard me say this before, but I think a tax incentive is the absolutely wrong reason to be designing an educational organizational system. Need to do it with respect to the outcomes and the performance that we would expect from whatever the type of organization that we come up with for it to serve the pertinent towns.
I don't think anybody disagree with you, but the other two protections that John's talking about are more significant to the long-term benefit of the school
Didn't
as
argue
well.
those. I don't argue those.
But
Okay.
it's also important to remember why the incentives were put in place and the tax incentives were put in place. It was to help mitigate the 4 years of change in bringing everybody together. So it wasn't, it's not actually something to convince people to move forward with. It's to help mitigate the challenges around combining 4 or more
I
school
understand
districts
that.
in
Keep
one.
things stable.
Right.
Education does not have a cost, it has an investment. So
Yes.
that's what we're
I
trying
think
to
it's
design.
misleading, calling it an incentive, honestly. I think it is the wrong term for it, because that's not really what it is. But anyway.
Okay.
I got
Stabilizer.
some, just out of curiosity, so say if Newfane votes yes and Brookline votes no. Now that we're a joint contract board in district, all our kids go to the same school, how would that work?
We'd have to write the articles to decide how we wanted it to work.
I mean, if they decide they don't want to, or we decide they don't want to, and they want to, we both go by the same kids in the same school, how you can't split that budget?
Well, I mean,
I think
to
we
be
wrote the
clear,
articles
the,
last time, right?
we did
Yeah.
do it, but I think we may have considered them necessary, but that's not necessary. I mean, just remember that if there's a vote moving forward, the joint contract doesn't exist anymore either way, whether one of the two towns vote yes, the opposite of the other one or not.
But it doesn't, what I'm saying is, all the kids go to the same school,
Correct.
therefore, it's the same budget.
Well,
So
if
if
the
one
u-
votes
if
yes,
the u-
and one votes no,
But if the union happened, if Brookline was the one who voted no, the union would happen, Newbrook would be gone, Brookline would be on their own, Newfane would then be in the 4-town union, modified union school district, and then Brookline would have to figure out their own elementary school board and budget and participate on the new board at the high school level alone.
Right, but how would that work? Because we're all in the same,
you wouldn't be all in the same anymore. Just like, if this thing goes forward, Leland and Gray board ceases to exist. The one board will control the elementary schools and Leland and Gray. That board will cease to exist, and that entity as a separate school entity will cease to exist. There'll be one legal
Then
entity
if
that controls both
Newfane,
schools.
if Newfane voted yes and Brookline voted no, then Newfane kids could still go to Newbrook, except for there'd be no Brook in the
But it
New.
would be
So
Newfane.
I think it's an important question, we should explore that more and find out
One of
how
the-
we would write the article.
Yeah, one of the things, you could write the article that says that, if you wanted it this way, that Brookline and Newfane had to vote the same way for either one to enter or not
Yeah,
enter.
you could do that.
We already closed our school in Brookline.
Yeah, so you know, that you would
Wouldn't
write
that
the
make your
article
choice
so
out
that you
there?
were
We made
considered
our choice.
together.
Yeah, and I think that's.
I almost think that's what we did. I have to go back. I'll bring a set of draft articles next time.
Yeah, I can't.
I have. Yeah, I'll find them next time. We'll have to look at that. So then really, the option, the only real two options are either the Union School District with the 5 towns, or 4 towns and a modified Union School District, or we're all just kind of, you know, status quo, and at that point we have to justify, we have to try and justify not making any sort of a change to the AOE.
I don't think you have to justify it. You just say the town didn't, the voters didn't let us do it. Said no. Said we're not gonna do it.
Okay.
And then you're at, basically, you'll see what the state decides to do.
You don't make a case for the state to do nothing, claiming that you're already in a better structure, you're already in a fine structure,
You could-
and that you should be left
you could do
alone
that
because
as the
things are
alternative,
good the
yeah.
way they are.
You could do that on the alternative structure piece.
So did I misunderstand that?
And then you'd have time to do that, because
Okay.
there's no,
That if we don't come up with a new organization, I understood it to be said that the Department of Education was gonna write one.
so in between those two is what Joe just talked about. You can say, we wanna put an alternative structure together that looks just like what we have, or something else. I mean, you could,
Didn't hear that.
so
Yeah,
that's what Joe just, that's a possibility in between.
And there's no guarantee that that would be approved, you know, sitting as part of a union school
No
district, the
guarantee
likelihood is
that-
put together.
No guarantee that what we propose would be approved either. so.
There's,
Correct.
there's alternative rules of being written around the alternative structures right now. And for any of you who want to give input, attend the regional meeting from the VSBA, which
Is that
is
gonna be their
on
topic?
Monday night in Brattleboro. And there's an opportunity, there's a program from the VSBA to share those draft rules and to provide feedback, which I think is really important, that the communities provide feedback.
And we can get the draft rules out to everybody right away, if that would be helpful.
You'll get them if you go to that meeting. You have to sign up if you're gonna go.
I think it'd be great if they could be sent out, the draft rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send them.
Yeah.
They're right on the state website.
They're here.
Yeah. If you're going to VSBA sent them to you.
The School Boards Association has a summary, and it may be on their website too, which helps if you don't wanna read the whole. Just to follow up on what you said, we made the 4 towns necessary in the articles.
Is that what we did?
So it couldn't happen the way Ken suggested it, because we were all necessary.
If any one
The
town.
only one that was advisable was Windham. That's how we addressed it the last time.
Okay. So what you said couldn't happen?
Under last time.
Under the last articles.
It's only possible if they're advisable. If they're necessary, which is what we had put in our last articles of agreement, both Brookline and Newfane, well, actually Brookline, Newfane, Jamaica, and towns were all necessary to form.
What would happen if everybody was advisable?
Well, that's the question that you were asking.
If everybody's
How would it work?
advisable,
It
then
would be a
any
modified union, it'd be a MUD.
You can still be all advisable.
To be clear as mud, we got that.
Mm-hmm.
And the elementary schools would all have their same separate budgets and the high school budget. So
Well,
what
no.
would be the difference?
Only if all 5 towns were advisable, only 1 town could actually say no and it would go forward. If 2 towns said no, then we wouldn't have the 4 that we need and it wouldn't go forward at all.
Okay, so.
It needs to be 4.
4 out of the 5 towns that are involved in these discussions have to ultimately, at the end of this, say yes to go
Right.
forward.
And obviously, Newfane and Brookline are pretty much tied to the same fate. But say Windham or Jamaica or Townsend said no. One of them would be advisable, right? Is that how that
The
would work?
advisable part comes first.
Advisable is something
It's
you
part
put
of
in
the
the articles,
Before.
where you say, necessary is if you must vote yes or we don't do this. Advisable is you can vote either way. If you vote yes, you're in. If you vote no, we do this without you. But we need 4 out of the 5 to be to say yes, whether they're advisable or necessary. I mean, we can go in and say all 5 towns are advisable, and then
Or they're all necessary.
Or they're all necessary. You know,
But they still have
probably
a vote.
if we'd said everybody was necessary and somebody voted no, then it wouldn't go forward at all. We could have a revote and make everybody advisable and go forward with the 4 that we knew had already voted yes once. Or we could just make everybody advisable and see how it plays out. And if 4 go forward, then we don't have to have a revote. And if all 5 say yes, then we go forward as all 5. I mean, that just comes down to how we write the articles.
But the joint contract and combined school makes all, I mean, it's really not an issue for us to all be advisable, except for that one issue.
Right.
So, I think John's gonna look into how we might structure
You could write
it
an
to make
article.
sure that that
Yeah.
doesn't happen in Newfane and Brookline.
Right.
Other than that, we could all be advisable without a
Right.
problem.
Because we're not throwing them out no matter what happens, okay?
We're not so-
I was in on that original deal. You guys ain't going nowhere.
All right. So that pretty much sums it up, right? Those are the 3 possibilities that we have. Does anybody have any questions on how that plays out? Now that we beat advisable and necessary to death?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just advisable that you're necessary. Got it.
Exactly. I think you got it. All right. So the next item is the time that we had planned to talk about the PR committee, and see if we could come up with a sort of PR plan. I know Patty has sent a couple of emails around, and Bucky sent an email that Bucky sent the email just to John and Patty and I. I guess he was just sending. It was work for the committee, and I was like, rather than treating, we could either treat it as correspondence, I guess, or you could just send it around to everybody so that we have it.
Sure thing.
But I figured it was also probably things that you, as one of the people on the PR committee, would want to talk about tonight anyway. And this was just sort of advanced warning on it. Do you want to start, or
Well, I do have a concern because one of our committee people is not here, and there's quite a few people actually missing tonight, and this is a huge part of what we need to do. I think again, it's key to the success or the lack of success of this whole effort. And so to make decisions about how in-depth we go, how much we're planning to do, when there's not everybody here, I think is not maybe appropriate.
Well, I think we can at least sort of, I mean, when I envisioned this, the PR part of tonight is that, I was hoping that you guys would have a chance to sort of think through a little bit of the process, and, I know you've looked at it and said it's a big job, and I know Bucky's thought about how different ways that, need to be approached, and sort of all of us ultimately need to come up with sort of a, do we need to hire somebody to manage this kind of stuff? I was taking notes in the margin last time about, the different forms of communication that were out there, you know, in terms of select board, social media, WCSU, school websites, presentations, house parties, lawn signs, you know, all of these different things. How much of that, first of all, how much of that as a committee do we believe needs to really happen? How much of it are we gonna take responsibility for and make happen? You know, are we gonna hire some sort of an outside PR consultant, like I know our other half has done, to monitor some of that and to get the word out? You know, Patty's 100% correct in that, you know, this, you know, we need informed public. We need informed voters. They need to understand the decision they're making, and they need to understand how important it is to, you know, the education of their children and the children of our region or our supervisory union, and they need to, you know, make an informed choice about what they're going to do. And so we need to, you know, we need to get that word out there. It's not a persuasive campaign. It's not, we've decided this is the right thing to do as much as it is. I mean, there is that part of it, but there's also just, here's all the information.
It's information.
Right. It's informational. But we need to get that out there, and the sooner we get it out in front of them, and the more time they have to ask questions and think it through and do their own research and stuff, the better off we are. So, you know, what I was thinking this would end up being is sort of, you know, saying these are the things that we think matters, and this is how we think it's going to work, and then, you know, we can make a decision as a committee about how much of it we can actually do and how much of it we're going to have to, you know, take a chunk out of our budget and pay somebody to do. Does that make sense? Somebody else have a different idea?
Did anybody speak to, I thought, did you mention anything about that other consultant, or did somebody say they were gonna get a hold of the consultant and see whether there was even available time?
Well, I mentioned in an email to Joe to see if they could come to a meeting and talk about what they are capable of doing, what they would think of as a plan, and what they might.
Yeah, and I said it was really quick to try and get them to come here, and
Yeah.
until we have a pretty good, I mean, I think, you know, once we have a little bit of an idea of where we're going with this, I think it's, you know, we should probably, if we're gonna go that way, have the person come and say, this is what we're thinking, what do you think, and does this make sense, and can you manage this for us, or can you at least help us with this?
I think that would make it a good interaction.
That makes it a good interaction. At this, you know, to have this person that the other people hired come tonight when we're kind of like, well, yeah, we need some PR.
What I was asking was there even availability for the other person to ask them to come at some point to have that conversation, if we did decide we were gonna hire somebody?
Yeah, I don't know, it would
be nice to have.
She's at the meeting tomorrow, right?
Most likely.
Could you check and see if she's interested in working with another committee, should we desire her? Go ahead.
I just know from the recent vote in Jamaica that lack of knowledge about anything that's even happening was a huge issue. And there were letters to the editor written, there was stuff in the newspaper, there were emails sent out, there was a Facebook presence, and there were still several people after the first vote who didn't know anything about what was going on. I'd run into them in town or at the grocery store or whatever and speak with them, and they go, I never knew anything about that. And I mean, it came down to making phone calls to get people aware of what was going on, because we're very rural. A lot of people get mail delivered now, so putting something at the post office isn't necessarily what it used to be, unless you're gonna stand there and talk to everybody. Just to leave brochures places, you know, I just don't think you can't count on just that. To send things home in a newsletter, a lot of the newsletters end up on the bus floor, so they never end up at the parents. You know, the parents don't see them, or they might be seen when there's something that smells in the backpack. And I just really think a really comprehensive, early on communication process is hugely important, and it's a huge amount of work. If you're gonna do a Facebook page, you have to monitor it. If you're gonna do blogs, there has to be someone monitoring these things and responsive, and if you're not responsive, people will stop paying attention to them. And I just really think this is such an important part of the success of this. But
Well, I agree with you, Patty. I think it is really important. And I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, how are people getting their information? You know, do people read the Reformer? Do people read the Rutland Herald? Do they do Facebook? You know, and is it going to be more of a spreading the word within your own community to get the word out and get the information out? I said we have a bi-monthly newsletter. I've sort of been appointed to write the articles about this. And so that's how we're gonna, you know, that's one of the ways we're gonna get the word out. But I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves. And then I'll also add, I have to drive the Windham school bus tomorrow, so I can't hang around for a long time because I have to be up at the crack of dawn. So if we're gonna plan the agenda for October 5th, and I'm going to be chairing that meeting, I can only stick around for a little while.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to curtail the conversation here, but I think that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. How are people getting their information?
Yep, that's a good question.
And then
yeah.
go that way.
One of my thoughts was actually trying to start the process of our collaborative union type thing in like inviting all of the town's leaders, elected officials, to a meeting or a reception that we're all here together and they're all here together, so that we're starting that whole thing of we're all one now, or we're trying to get to that place in that way, and trying to communicate to all towns, not maybe just our own, not taking responsibility for just our own town, but trying to make sure that we communicate as one group to all of our towns, because that's what we're trying to accomplish, is all showing that we can work together. So that was just a thought of mine too. But I do have information about the flyer, if we're gonna try and at least.
You know, the election day flyer?
Yeah. So I asked at Windham Central if they ever use anybody for printing, because I want to try and keep it local and follow with, and maybe we could get special pricing, and they said no, they just use their copy machine. So I did go to Staples, and I got information about, you know, how much it would be to do different numbers of flyers, and it runs, black and white, it runs from $1,000 for $100 to $4,000 for $320. Then if you add color, it goes up to $570 and $670. And so I don't know how we want to proceed, or do we want to kind of firm this up? I'm not super creative, but I do have an ace in the hole because my husband is. So he can probably come up with a flyer, no problem like that. But it's just a matter of the content, and I can send this all out and we can talk about it in October. You know, I can come up with an idea, or have him help me come up with an idea of a flyer and what information we want on it, and we could start there. We'd have a little framework. So if anybody has an objection to trying to wait till the October 5th meeting.
Patty had shared her thoughts with Heidi and myself, and I responded to her and tried to Heidi, and she got me her correct email address. Thank you very much. And then I sent copies also to John and to Joe. I apologize. I should have sent it wider. I thought that at this point we were within the committee.
Yeah,
but I have slightly different views. From what I understand that the elementary Act 46 committee is doing, I feel that's overkill. And I also believe that having grown up in the West River Valley and knowing a number of the folks here, my sense is that they would like to hear from us and not read it. And one of the, in reflection of what we did in the Red Committee, I think that we waited too long for our public information sessions, because we were getting very close to voting time, and we were laying it out for them for essentially the first time. And so I think sooner rather than later. I don't dispute at all the importance of doing this. It is critical, absolutely, but what we do and how we do it. Joe said earlier, we're not trying to sell anything. I feel that our primary function in this communications part is to describe to the voters and the residents of the towns the why, the what, the when, and how, and the mechanics of the process. But I would like to, if we could get a flyer and get that out as kind of a basis of information, and then develop something like we did in the presentations for the that we did with the Red Committee. We all had parts in that. We went to each of the towns, pertinent towns, and presented the information. I felt in all the towns we were graciously received and appreciated our efforts. But I guess the primary takeaway is that this needs to be done sooner rather than later, so that we can get feedback to use as input for developing whatever organization that we come up with, so that we can hear what the people are saying. But and I have no idea to what extent the people use all of the Facebook, etc. Whether the presentation plus documents on the WCSU website are sufficient, I don't know. But that's my thinking at this point. But I believe in the democratic process, and whatever you folks come up with, I will work hard to make it work. But that's just my thinking at this point.
Go ahead.
I think part of what I get, and I work in Townsend, and I interact with a lot of people, and the big thing that I get is people don't understand. They read the language, and they don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to them that if they haven't been involved in a process like this before, that they read it and they're reading something that they don't get.
That's our job to help.
Yeah, and I have people coming to me with problems that have absolutely nothing to do with this. But they think all of a sudden that I'm gonna be able to come and say, okay, so-and-so doesn't like this about their school, and they don't understand what we're doing, I think is a big thing. And I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we do need to educate people.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's probably a good idea to get out as much word as we possibly can. I'm not sure our timeline allows for, you know, a lot of like almost public hearing type meetings.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if we're gonna move, I mean, we had that draft timeline, and if we're gonna move forward and take articles to the to the Agency of Education by the, end of the year? I don't have the timeline in front of me.
It was even before that.
It was in November, wasn't it?
End of November.
You know, we'd be hard pressed to get around to all 5 towns and hold a meeting and get some input and then try and change what we're gonna do. You know,
I would argue that you will not answer a third of the questions in written information.
We've talked about this in Brookline, and, you know, we would like to share this with the select board, because they're out in the community talking to various and sundry people. But the select board meetings are the same time as our meetings here. So, the same Wednesday. So, what we thought we would like to do is, as Patty was talking about, putting something together, bullet points, whatever, a brief presentation to the select board, leaving them with something, and then putting something together for when the national elections occur. There will be handouts available. You know, we've got 500 people in our town.
Right.
So that's probably the best we can do. I mean, Erin's right, people do not understand Act 46. They don't know what it means to them.
So it's not just understanding Act 46, I don't think. It's also understanding what brought Act 46 around.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Which I think
Why
is
do we have to
really-
do anything?
People don't,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's understandable, they don't
Yeah.
know about what we're facing.
But we need to do something, and, you know, our select board meets the first and third
Yeah.
Wednesdays of every month. So we were kind of toying with, by the 19th of October, which is, I think, the second meeting in October, we need to present something to our select board so that at least they can discuss it. We're not gonna be there to present it because we're gonna be here.
I mean, that may be one avenue for Brookline.
Yes.
But I'm not sure all the towns would feel that the select board was the only way to go.
I
I mean,
would-
every town operates differently.
I would agree, I would agree.
You know, I know our town has a lot on the plate right now at the
Yeah.
select board level.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have much interest in what we're doing here.
There's a lot of folks within my community of young families coming to school districts who don't even know about this.
Yeah.
You know, not that they don't understand, but they don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, you know, I obviously don't have the expertise of a lot of the people in this room, but I'm learning about it here. I think something that would be really helpful for this PR is to bring this into the younger families' communities, but to have a brochure, a pamphlet that says,
Yes.
hey, this is what we're talking about, this is what can happen.
Here's a little
So we can
trifold,
have,
something that.
so we can have an educated conversation. I mean, I've started this conversation with folks in our community, but I can only take it as far as I understand it.
Yeah.
And once we kind of come together and have something like that, that would be very helpful to
Would it
pass
be
around. And
worth
I know
putting-
people would get excited about it and share, you know, we'd grow more than just this committee.
Would it be worth putting a short video together that could be posted on YouTube
Sure.
or
Yeah.
that people can access whenever they want to?
Is a one-page pamphlet, John, something that, you know, with the help of the committee, you could do, or at least
Sure,
a
I'd be
draft
happy
of?
to, I'd be happy to
Okay.
draft it.
Can we have, you know, I mean, I'm certainly willing to, and I know, you know, Patty and Bucky and probably Heidi, and, you know, we can, I mean, you started, right, with some verbiage? I mean, if we give you some ideas, I mean, just
Right.
sort of like Bucky was saying, you know, the who, what, where, when, how kind of thing, and just outline it in pretty simple terms. It probably won't answer all the questions, although at some point we ought to come up with a FAQ kind of a document.
I'd like to modify that to one sheet, not one page, because I don't think one page will even
Right.
touch it.
I don't
Back.
think so either.
Well, if you do something like this,
I don't think it would cover, there's too much information
No,
to
but
go
I'm
on
saying both
trifold.
sides.
Yeah,
on both
yeah,
sides.
one
Both
page,
sides.
both sides, you know, that, we're not gonna cover everything on one
So
document.
there's
but-
also no point in reinventing the wheel about how we got here. I'm sure other communities have gone through this. If there's, you know, if some of this
See what's out there.
information is
Yeah.
actually appropriate for all communities in Vermont, and then others are specifically targeted toward, other questions and answers are specifically targeted toward us, so we can use other information, I'm sure. People are willing to share.
I got some.
One sec, Patty, and then.
I kind of threw together some little information today at work. You know, at lunch. You know, calling it Windham Central Supervised Union Act 46 information as like a header, and then it's a definition of Act 46 I took right off the website. I think it was the agency, the education, agency of education. And then I have links, I copied links for the timeline, and that's right from the Vermont.gov. A fact sheet from Vermont.gov. Brattleboro TV, the link to that so people could watch the meetings, and the Windham Central Board link right to the Act 46 information. that changes, and somehow let people know, please pay attention to these different things, because it's a moving target too, even on the .gov site, things are changing all the time, and as new meetings come up, so that people are into the process of watching the process that we're going through, and that's about all I had so far for the, it said Act 46 of 2015 provides opportunities for school districts to unify existing disparate governance structures into sustainable systems of education delivery that are designed to meet identified state goals while recognizing reflecting local priorities. That's kind of, probably maybe not, it could be simplified, but.
Yeah, it should be simplified.
Yeah, you might have to read that.
So what does this really mean?
Yeah.
Well, so that can get circulated by email and come up with a draft of.
I'll send this
what
out.
we're gonna do.
But
And-
that's just a few things I came up with for the flyer, to be on the flyer, to really put a lot of information there in a little amount of space. Because you need a flyer to look dealable. If you have too much verbiage, they won't read it.
Well, it needs to be simple, you need to have
Simple,
bullet points,
Yep,
you know.
simple, and like I've got a sample flyer here for a free concert.
Right, but we're not advertising for a free concert. I think that we need to have a flyer that could be used for the public to then share with the rest of the public. I sort of wonder if we put this up like a free concert on the town hall, people are gonna walk right past it.
Well, this
but if
was
it's-
just a sample of, but if you put too much,
Right.
You gotta
Right.
keep,
they won't read it.
it's to keep it simple, stupid.
But it almost should be something that somebody who is informed on it could read it, share it with the rest of the community, and then hopefully within that group, some of those people get sparked and they take it and they can share and have informed information in front of them.
The language needs to be simple enough,
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah, a lot of these links will
We'll get
give
them
them
there, too.
all the information they need in a really easy to understand form.
This is
That
the
provides-
work, this is the work that I want the PR committee to be doing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We have a saying, had a saying in the section that if you're gonna do a newsletter, it needs to be able to be read between the mailbox and the milk house.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ken, you had something you wanted to add to this. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
if you're gonna, you were saying that it'd be too much to get 5 informational meetings into each town, why don't you do 1 informational meeting here at Leland and Gray with all 5 towns? Early, and then do another one instead of doing 5 separate meetings.
And how do we get the word out about those two?
We can talk about that,
Well-
we can talk about that at the next meeting, just whether or not we need to do
Free
that.
food or something. Bring
Yeah,
it
but
in.
it's still
Get that out there.
Somehow get to them all.
Yeah.
The dikes will get it out.
Spreading a lot of.
So hopefully, John, you can work with the people that are on the
Doing it
PR committee, and we can get together some sort of a draft of a, page and a half, 2-page flyer that, covers some of the, gives somebody at least an idea, and it starts a conversation.
Would it be unreasonable for, and I have no idea, that's why I'm asking this question. Would it be unreasonable for the schools to email it out? I mean, I get emails every couple days from Ms. Sarah at Newbrook Elementary School about stuff that's going on at the school. And I get the newsletters crumpled up in the bottom of my kids' bags, and I try to flatten them out and read them, but I read her emails.
That's only parents.
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask schools to include that in, like, the Thursday notes or the Friday notes or the whatever notes there is. We can put out some
Or even
information.
put links on their Facebook
Especially if we
pages.
have this brochure.
Yeah, if we
that can
have
be
this
attached.
information, and it may be a way to drive, those parents that you were talking about to a meeting.
Newbrook's
If
been
we do
posting links on their Facebook page to our meeting on BCTV. So that's one way Newbrook's already,
Yeah.
the school itself is already getting the information out there. I don't know, I'm assuming other schools might be doing it too. I happen to follow Newbrook, so I know they're doing it.
Yeah, I try. I just, a lot of times say, I'm gonna go look at Facebook now, and then I fall asleep. But I get the emails when I'm at, eating lunch or having coffee or something like that, or in between things, and they come up on my phone, and I always read them. I take the time, because she's taken the time to send it to me.
Okay.
As a parent, I mean.
That's fair.
So, where are we headed? What direction are we going in? Because we don't have a plan. I
Work on
mean,
the flyer.
are we going with less is more? Or are we not interested in listening to a PR person? You know, 'cause I
Well,
don't
we
know
need
where
a
to
draft
go
of a
now.
flyer for the next meeting.
Yeah,
And John's gonna talk to her tomorrow night at his meeting and see if
Okay.
she even has capacity for us. If she does, then we'll know that at the October 5th meeting, and then depending on where we are with the flyer and the rest of the PR, we can decide if we wanna retain this person or not.
or how in-depth, what
Right.
avenues we wanna use
Right.
for communication.
Mhm.
So maybe I'll send out an email asking for people on this committee to give their ideas about
I think that makes sense.
other avenues and
Yeah.
where you think your town gets their information.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
All of that can happen
Just be sure to
between now
add
and
me
the
to
next
your
meeting.
list.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. So for the next meeting, we have more principals, right?
Yes, 3.
3 principals. Plus you should be ready to talk about the student impact of unification.
Yes.
Okay. And we have the draft of the PR flyer ready to discuss and maybe get to the point of disseminating it for use on the 19th.
I have the financial projection.
Oh, we'll have financial projections.
And I'll have draft articles. I mean, this is
And we'll
too
have
big a
draft
meeting now
articles of
already,
ourselves, for ourselves. I think that about covers an agenda. All right,
Sounds good.
anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to make a
Folks?
motion to adjourn.
A second.
All right. Then moved and seconded, all in favor?
That's right, everybody.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.